they would swipe yes on a woman who they otherwise would not find attractive and not even have sex with even. They're just like, so, but I think if you were to do some sort of experiment where like the men had to like, okay, do you find this woman attractive? I think most men, the majority of men will appraise more women as attractive than the reverse. But most women find like, I mean, we can go around the table really quick. What % of men do you find attractive?
I mean, I go for personality because...
Well, you don't care about looks at all?
I do to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
How do you select then on a dating app?
I usually don't use dating apps, but
if you were to use a dating app, how would you select?
After, like, what vibe does he give? Does he smile a lot? Does he...
Well, let's just make this easy then.
If he looks arrogant, I would like
okay, but let's make it easy. Let's make it easy. I totally get that you care about personality, but are you saying you don't care about looks at all?
No, I do.
Okay, cool.
I do.
So whatever your like metric is or whatever when it comes to like looks, I'm totally agree with you. Maybe you care about it 1%, but like that 1% is the first thing that's going to come. Even if you don't care about looks at all and you just factor for personality, you still can acknowledge whether a man is physically attractive or not physically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what percent of men do you find physically attractive?
Like on the street or on a dating app?
Street.
I would say 50. 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
50.
50. Cap.
Maybe 70.
Cap.
A percentage of...
You would date 70% of the men that walk by on the street.
Well,
assuming they all had good personalities.
I'd say if they were... like, most men are conventionally attractive, I feel.
Really? Okay, all right.
There's a lot of men in the world, so...
Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm saying like 25%.
25%? What about you?
I'm engaged now, so none. But when I wasn't, it was like a cool 50%.
50%?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'd probably say I'm like 30 to 40%.
All right.
I'm saying 30%.
Okay.
I'd say like 15 to 20%.
All right. All right.
When I was
pretty
single.
generous. You guys are a little generous.
Yeah, fucking right. Yeah, right. Brian, do you have the I never liked the segment, but this would be a good time to roll out the segment of the dating app where you could ask if they would date or not date. I would actually like to see that based on those things. I just don't believe it, not for a second.
We could. I don't know if we.
Who does he not believe?
I don't think we have like the login still. We probably got banned, and we should have. If we were gonna do it, we should have done it before because, like, true. Because it's like if somebody takes a position, they're going to try to conduct themselves and act in a way to affirm the position, even if they're lying about it. Like they're typically not gonna like. Expose themselves. Yeah. So let's get into.
Then what you do? You know what you do in the future? Then you ask them this question, and then you get nothing but ugly men, right? And then just only go through the ugly men, and then have them bite the bullet that they would date them, just so that they can affirm their nonsense, right?
I like it.
That would be a good way to do it.
I like it. Okay, what else do we have from Cena? You can't tell your partner not to do something if you do it. Meaning if your partner says, I don't like that, don't do it, then they should follow the same rule. What's the the context here?
It's like if you were to tell your wife, like, don't do this because I prefer you wouldn't do it, I don't want you to do it, I think in return the men should also do the same. Like, say, I don't want you to go out and party on Friday nights. The men should also like stay home and not go party on Friday nights. Does that make sense?
So you're looking for reciprocity, basically. Reciprocity and respect.
I guess in a way.
I think that's fair. Although I kind of want to argue it because I think let me just preface this by saying I think going out to bars, clubs, parties is stupid. Regardless of your sex or gender or whatever. I'm introverted. I've done it a bit when I was younger. I just can point out actual reasons why I think it's like stupid and whatever. So I don't think anybody should do it just on that basis. But I think there's a difference because, like, as a guy, you can go out to a bar or club and no girl's gonna come and hit on you ever. But as a girl, if you go out to a bar or club, like, there's a fairly high probability, like, you can, like, before you even go out, you can probably, like, anticipate that somebody's gonna come and talk to me, you know?
Depends on what you do with that, though. Like, me being in a relationship, I have respect to my boyfriend, you know? We have a mutual respect when we both go out, you know? Mm-hmm. We have boundaries and stuff, and I'll tell a guy off if they come up to me, just out of respect for being in a relationship.
What I'm saying here is, I'm not saying that because women get approached, it means that something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Certainly it can be the case. The woman can go out and will never have any sort of temptation, or anything will happen ever, although there's a higher likelihood. And in addition to that, even if you have perfectly good intentions, the men that goes to these venues, I don't know what their intentions are. You are potentially putting yourself in a dangerous position. As men, you guys look to us to be leaders and protectors. If you want us to be leaders and protectors, you need to give us authority. We need to be able to have authority in the relationship. And part of this would include safety assessment, risk assessment, going out to bars, clubs, parties. There's a lot of drunk men. Men do stupid or even criminal shit when they're drunk, or even if they're not drunk, these venues can attract demented fucks. And I mean, I don't know, why is it that in these environments, you got to watch your drink. Somebody could put something in your drink. That has nothing to do with your conduct, everything to do with somebody else's conduct. I don't want you in that position to begin with. So if you don't go to the club, you've totally precluded yourself from being in an environment where this sort of crime is likely to happen. In addition to that, I'm trying to think what else. A guy could try to, like, touch you inappropriately. If they're drunk, it happens all the time. That's not your fault. It's never your fault. But I guess I don't mention and go to the bar with their girlfriend, but if you did go to the bar or club with your girlfriend, then she's going to be like, look to you to do something about it. Then you end up in a street fight. Something happens to the guy. Something happens to you. You got into a very dumb fucking situation because your girl wanted to dance. Fuck that shit. If you're in a relationship, you don't take your girl to the club, you don't take your girl to the bar, it's gonna be a problem eventually.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
So I think there's a couple of points that need to be factored into that decision. You mentioned at the beginning that you're an introvert. You don't like going out to those kinds of places. Yeah. And so I would encourage you to find a partner that is similar. I've kind of been in this situation where, I'm married. My husband has opinions about certain things. One of them is that he's not comfortable with me traveling outside of the country without him. And it's to a place that I have been before. And this has been a topic of ongoing discussion in our marriage. And while I can have empathy for the position that, he doesn't want me put in that position, it also kind of discredits where I'm coming from, in that I have a very strong intuition. I think all women kind of have that feeling when you know that you shouldn't be anywhere anymore. And that's not to discredit that there are stupid people, drunk people do dumb things and they can expose you indecently, but that's the same thing as saying, like, if me getting in my car every day, there's the potential that a drunk driver is going to also get in their car and hit me. So should I not drive anymore because there's drunk drivers?
Isn't there a matter there of respect, though?
There is a matter of respect, and that's why it's an ongoing conversation.
Well, hang on. Let me just make the case, and then you can respond. I would think that there would be a matter of respect there. So you as the wife of your husband, you are an extension, a representation in a way of him and him of you, right? So you, just even for appearance purposes, if you're traveling out of the country and things like that, I could see where a man could see that as being disrespectful if you wanted to go without him. That kind of makes sense, right?
Just the fact that I'm going without him?
No. It's not the fact that you're going without him. It's the idea that, so he'll probably frame it like, well, I don't trust other men, right? It's not you. It's not that I don't trust you. It's that I don't trust other men who are around, something like that. Is that more akin to the type of conversation you're having?
Yeah, and also the distance is a fearful position. It's like farther, more difficult to get to me in the event that there is an accident. Or something.
So I'll break this down the best that I can, at least because I've heard this kind of go back and forth so many times. It's not really a matter of him not trusting you or not even trusting other men. It's a matter of him wanting to show respect to him. And so from his position, it's very likely that he thinks the most respectful thing that you could do is never put him in a position where he'd have to tell you not to do that in the first place.
If I have been transparent about my desire to travel prior to our relationship turning to a marriage, is that something that,
Yeah, I mean, even then, right? It's like the idea for men, right? The subservience, respect from the woman is extremely important. And it seems that if a woman would want to go out, for instance, like with her friends to a nightclub or something like that, I think you could trust her just fine. I just think that they find it to be highly disrespectful. Just like if they were, perhaps walking down the street and holding hands with a woman, you would be very upset by that, even if they meant nothing by that. I don't know exactly how they wouldn't, but the point stands, right? It's like there's a different metric for what is considered respectful or disrespectful. And if you're married and you go out of country without your husband, for the purpose, you know what I mean? There's he says distance, he says this, he says that, but he probably just feels like it's disrespectful.
I can respect that position.
Yeah.
But so going back to this, I don't know. In any case, Sina, I think your point was just like both people should uphold it. Yeah. And I think what I was kind of maybe rambling a little bit, but I think the point I was trying to make is that there's kind of differences. I agree with you that like I would probably not date a girl who is interested in raving and partying and going to the club anyways. But I do think it's actually a good standard for a lot of men that perhaps this sort of people who participate in this sort of stuff might not be the most relationship-minded person, because when it comes down to it, I do genuinely think that in terms of the differential here and the asymmetry, a woman who goes out to a bar and a club is a bigger liability to the relationship than the reverse.
That's probably probably one of the only things I disagree with you on, just because of being in a long distance relationship. We have to build that trust with each other, and we both tell each other everything when we're going out, who we're going out with. Mm-hmm. And I strictly, we both strictly go out to hang out with our friends, and we're both very conscious of who we go out with too. Mm-hmm. Like I go out with my girlfriends that I know are gonna stand up for me no matter what.
Wait, what part do you disagree with though? It being a bigger liability for the woman to go out? I think it's a liability for both people to go out, but
not necessarily.
So the disagreement is like precluding your partner from going out? Is that the disagreement? Or
I mean, if your partner had, different, like if my boyfriend were like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with you going to this place with these people, I would respect that. And
how about period? I don't feel comfortable you going out to any bars, clubs, etc. period.
Oh yeah, then I would totally respect him.
Okay, so what's the disagreement?
It's like how you were saying, like that basically, like if a girl goes out to a bar, that's disrespectful. Is that what you were?
You said she's a liability to the relationship.
Yeah,
more of a liability.
It's a bigger liability than the reverse, because here's why.
I mean, yeah.
To the relationship?
It's a bigger liability because one of, I think, the hypergamous nature of women, like women are much more likely to like potentially like you guys will trade up if the opportunity presents itself, and like this presents an opportunity for that. Actually, that's a terrible argument. Let me retract that. The main issue is that when it comes to When it comes to the way that men and women flirt, it's totally different. So you guys would agree that, well, let me ask you guys this. How many of you here, when you go out to a bar or a nightclub, you will like actively approach and go up to like 10 guys in the night and try to flirt with them and sexually pursue them? Who here does that?
Never.
Ever? Have any of you gone to, and look, I'm going to just preface this by saying, I don't believe this, but you guys just go out to the bar and club to have fun. Saying that, have you ever gone out to a party or a bar or a club and you weren't like, yeah, I'm going to go fuck some dude tonight, but you thought, oh, maybe in the dark recesses of your mind, because you could never even comprehend ever having sexual interest in a man, have you ever thought, oh, it would be nice if I met a guy tonight when you went out?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
You never thought, I can't wait to maybe have male attention tonight. Oh my God, bro. Ever?
Never at a bar or a club or anything.
So just to be clear, you've never gone out to a bar or a club with, I'm not saying you were thirsty, not saying you were like fucking on the hunt for some penis, but it never even crossed your mind like,
dry spell.
It'd be nice to meet like a cool guy tonight.
Yeah, it crossed my mind. Definitely.
Like it's never been even a part of your motivation to go out, right?
I don't go out.
You've never been to a bar or club?
I've never been to a
When
club.
I was like 18.
Okay.
How old are you?
Me?
Well, the context is going out to bars and clubs. So, I mean, if you don't go out, then you don't go out. But you've never been to a rave or a party? Look, I'll make the point though. Nobody here? You've never been to a social gathering and you're like, it'd be nice to meet a cool guy. Really? You guys can't even cop to like having romantic or sexual interest in men?
Sure, yeah. You're saying we've never done it?
Oh my God, what are you guys all fucking asexual, aromantics? No. Oh my God, women can never even, you guys can never even.
I said I have.
Why can't you just admit that you have interest in men? Why is that so, oh my God, bro.
Oh, definitely have, especially like when I was younger, and I would go out like.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
of course.
Now that none of you even granted me that you have any romantic or sexual interest in men when you go out to these environments. Okay, I'll make my point.
Not when I'm out.
Sure, I'll make my point regardless. Where do you guys prefer to meet men?
On Twitch or
you prefer to meet them on dating apps and fucking whatever. Okay, whatever.
No.
The point I'm trying to make here is that when it comes to getting into a relationship, we all agree that a man should stop pursuing women, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Men should stop pursuing women. It would be cheating, right? If you were in a relationship with a guy and he went up to a girl, he approached a girl, took the initiative, and flirted with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do women do that? No. What do women do? Women put themselves in positions to be pursued. They put them in positions to be approached. You won't slide into a guy's DM, but you'll post a revealing photo or post something on social media.
What? No, we
Hold
slide
on.
into people's DMs.
Oh my, okay. Do I have to address the constant exception thing? Do women slide into men's DMs? Yes, they do. Do you do it at the same how many DMs do you get per day?
Me?
Yes.
Not a lot.
Even as a OF content creator, you don't get.
Yeah, no, not like DMs. People react to my stories.
Okay, how many DMs do you get? 1 per day? 2 per day? 3 per day?
Yeah, 2 per day.
2 per day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you've been on social media how long? You're 23? 2 per day. Okay, so there's you've had like would you say you've had like 2,000 men DM you then?
Yep. Not
You said 2 per day.
Yeah.
2 per day.
Uh-huh.
There's 365 days in a year.
Mm-hmm.
In just 1 year, that's over 7.
But some of them are the same, like just double, triple
that's not
texting.
Individual DMs.
Yeah, but not that often.
Okay, then what? How many individual men DM you?
Like
per week?
3 a week.
3 a week.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a given year, that's over 150 men who have contacted you, offering you a romantic or sexual relationship, essentially. How many men per year do you DM?
I DM a lot.
Okay, how many?
Me?
Yeah, is it 150 a year?
More.
And really? And how many respond?
Not all of them. Yeah.
All right, whatever.
She's unique, though.
Okay.
We will say. That's not.
So
like, you're trying
people
to make the
just
point
wanna
on the wrong
love
person.
The fucking exception. I hate these exception arguments. It's such a waste of time. It just totally, every time these exception, oh, there's an exception, it fucking totally derails the entire conversation. People can't even grant the general point that's just widely known. Women do not initiate when it comes to romantic relationships to the same degree or same frequency that men do. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, what do women do? You don't slide into men's DMs, right? You post a photo and then you try to elicit contact from men. When it comes to modern dating, we have a clear cutoff on men saying it's cheating for you to use the methods in which you get women. We say if you go approach a man, and it applies to women too, for example. If a woman were to approach a man, that'd be cheating too. The problem is that women don't do it. We're only cutting off men's system for getting women, but we don't cut off women's systems for getting men. And so the fair proposition would be men need to stop approaching women, and you women need to stop putting yourselves in scenarios and locations and positions where you can anticipate and where women would put themselves with an expectation they get approached. This isn't to say you can't go to the grocery store even though men approach you at the grocery store. It's not what we're saying. But when it comes to very specific social gatherings and social venues, bars, clubs, parties, where the expectation is going to be that you're going to be approached and people are drinking, there's alcohol involved, there's drugs involved, people will hook up at these venues, they'll fuck after these venues. If you go to Trader Joe's, you're not getting finger banged in the bathroom after 10 minutes of talking to some dude at Trader Joe's. I've been to bars, I've been to parties, I've been to clubs.
I can agree with that.
I've seen some shit go down. People be fucking in the middle of the party sometimes.
I take a slightly different approach here. So while I'm known for kind of giving logical arguments, and this will be one as well, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to try to make some emotional appeals, and perhaps it'll be a bit more effective.
Sure.
So do any of you girls who are here have any irrational fears? Are you afraid of things like a irrational fear of spiders, perhaps? Anybody?
Small space.
Yeah, small space. Any other irrational fears?
Heights.
Yeah. Heights, yeah, that's an irrational fear. And perhaps you have bad dreams occasionally that give you bad intuitions that are kind of irrational as well. That happens often to women, right? I can see some nodding heads. Well, what if you were to kind of suppose this also? I think that often men are kind of left high and dry on this because we're often kind of looked at as being extremely rational, logical, and I think men are. But they also have irrational fears. And what if it's not a matter that they don't trust you, but it's a matter that they have an irrational fear? That the fear itself perhaps is not a rational one, that you're going to go out and sleep with another guy if you go to a nightclub or something like this, but rather they don't want to have to worry themselves to death with irrational fears, just like with all the irrational fears that you expect them to kind of take care of on your behalf, that you don't want to be tortured with. You want to be comforted so that you don't have to deal with them. Then you would consider that to be a matter of respect. Like, let's say if you had a terrible dream or something like that with a bad intuition, perhaps you just want to be comforted, just like have a hug, right? Have them acknowledge that, hey, even though that fear is kind of silly, don't worry about it, honey. I still love you, and it's no big deal, right? Wouldn't it be the same thing on the other foot? Like, couldn't we grant a little grace towards the irrational fear that men could have? when it comes to something like that. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, I
That
think
the fear
men
is
are
there.
very
Maybe
valid
it's not
for that.
completely rational, but just like you want to be comforted and respected for your irrational fears, don't they also deserve that?
Well, I don't think at that point it would even be irrational because, you see stuff happen all the time, to girls.
Well, I'm not saying that. I think even irrational fears are based in something of a reality, right? Why are
Yeah.
you so afraid of a confined space, for instance? Well, because you envision perhaps getting stuck in it. Or why are you so terrified of heights? Well, because perhaps you envision falling from a great height and that terrifies you. So that's based in a reality. It's just the fear itself is irrational, right? But all those fears are still based in some kind of reality. So because you have these experiences like Brian's talking about in bars where there's a lot of drinking, perhaps you've seen some fights or seen some weird things go down, the chance of that happening with your woman may be very, very, very small. So therefore the fear could be very irrational, but shouldn't there be a little grace granted and a little respect granted to them for also their irrational fears, not just your own?
Yes.
So if you were more of an extrovert and you did like going out, but you didn't want your lady to go out, would you honor what she's saying and say, okay, I won't either? Because men go to the club to hook up with women. Women might go to enjoy attention or this or that, but men go usually specifically because they want to try to engage with women or hook up with women. Like, I could say a bar is different. Guy friends go to a bar, hang out, watch sports, whatever. But clubs specifically, I think men only go with one intention, and it is to try to pursue women to the point of sleeping with them.
Sure. So if you had a man, well, I don't know if you do or not. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just a hypothetical. If you had a boyfriend, husband, whatever, and he wanted to go out to a club, right? And he said, "Honey, you don't trust me," right? You would say, "Yeah, I trust you, but," right? Because you have this fear, right?
Right.
And the fear might not even be rational, completely rational, but wouldn't it be very respectful of him to respect your wishes in that instance and say, "You're right. I'm going to stay home." Why torture your mind with this irrational fear that you have when I can just help you avoid it altogether?
Yeah, for sure. I was just wondering if Brian agreed. Like,
so hang on. So if that happens in reverse then with women, where men say, "I don't want you to go out to a club. I don't want you to go out to these bars. I don't want you to," isn't that also kind of a matter of respect then, that you don't do that on his behalf?
correct. Yeah, I was agreeing. I was just curious what his ultimate answer was. If his lady said, I don't want either of us to go out to the club, would he respect that? Or is he saying, as the man in the relationship, he's going to say, I don't want you doing this, but I'll decide when and where and how I'll do this. I was just curious if what she was saying, he would do that in a relationship.
Yeah, so even just to answer your question really quick, even if I was extroverted, I don't think any of my actual rational objections to going out to a nightclub change whatsoever. So like all those stupid things that come with nightlife don't change whether you're introverted or extroverted. There's probably extroverted people who also think nightclubs and parties and bars are dumb as fuck. But in a relationship,
if you were more inclined, like say you do enjoy going to the nightclub, whatever, and she's like, well, if I can't go, I don't want you to go either. Would you?
I think it's fair. Well, okay, like the situation would either be if I did like to go out to the club, it would probably be if I'm putting myself in the position. And is the scenario she's asking me to not go out and she's not going to go out, or
well, she basically said
she wants to go out.
You both should honor the same practices essentially.
Yeah.
And if you don't want her to go out, then you shouldn't be able to go out.
Yeah, I guess.
But isn't that revenge?
Sure, I guess.
Isn't that revenge against a fear that one person has and the other one doesn't?
I thought it's respect.
Yeah, but no. I would agree with you if you had an irrational fear or something that really would bother you, and that's why you're asking them not to. But what if you don't share the same fear, but then you just demand that they do it anyway? That sounds like revenge.
I mean, I don't see it that way. I'm just saying she just
Why
made the point
why wouldn't it be? If you're not actually afraid of it, but if they're afraid of it and you're not, right? It'd be like this. It'd be like, I'm afraid of spiders, so you also, right? Whenever I jump around screaming when a spider comes around, you also need to jump around screaming when a spider comes around. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So it'd be the same thing applied here. If you have this great fear that your partner's going to do X thing, and so that person's going to kind of like assuage that fear. They're going to do what they can to assist you in that by showing you the respect of not making you worry yourself to death. But you don't have the fear which is reciprocal. Then telling them not to do the thing sounds like it's revenge. Like, well, if I can't, then you can't. Like, wouldn't that be the opposite of fairness?
I'll move on after your answer if you have one.
I don't.
Oh, okay. All right. I will move it on. Sina, I'll have you read this one.
The wife that wants to travel to another
Twitch, Damon. Go ahead.
country without her husband or to a nightclub with her friend is actually already single. He just doesn't know it yet.
Do you have a response to this?
Yeah, I'm never leaving my husband, so.
Okay.
And can we add some context? Like, we've been best friends for years. I introduced her to her husband, so I know him very well. Like, recently, we've had this conversation over the last few years about being able to travel down to Mexico. And now she's been invited to a bachelorette party where no husbands are going. All of the wives or girlfriends or whatever are going as a group. And so should she not be trusted to be cautious and to be careful and to still be allowed to go and enjoy that?
I'm not letting my girlfriend or wife going to a bachelorette party.
So would you go and like hang out nearby?
No, she's just not. She's not going.
So then if you were invited, would you go?
Here, let me paint it like this.
That was what I was getting at.
You can go. The relationship is over. It was nice to meet you. We have different values. You're not respecting my boundaries. I'm not going to control you. Mm-hmm. You go ahead and get drunk and have your male stripper. Mm-hmm. That is not conduct.
That's extreme.
That is not conduct conducive to, in my view, in terms of what I want in a partner, to a long-term relationship or marriage.
Would you have a bachelor party?
No.
Would your wife have a bachelorette party?
I wouldn't. These dudes who get strippers, that's fucking weird.
It's not about strippers. Bachelorette parties are not for only strippers.
Okay, well, look.
Well, then
like you can go,
you know what's crazy?
Go and have no promiscuous
well, then
activities.
Sure, hang on, sure, you're right. If there's absolutely going to be zero strippers there and you guys are just like hanging out and sewing stuff, then yeah, she can go, sure.
Or just sitting at a resort, just at the pool, where you don't even leave the resort.
That's different. When you say a bachelorette party, right, what comes to mind is not a resort where you're sitting at the pool. What comes to mind is that you're at a male strip club, right? That's what comes to mind.
Or there's
if you're saying,
I don't think so.
Or there's strippers involved. If you're saying that is not the case, right? And the bachelorette party is, well, me and the girls are just going to get together in the local resort and have some drinks and this and that. Then what would even the problem be there, right? Like, why even bring that up as being something in which would be controlling for somebody to say yes or no to, right? What's even objectionable there?
What do you mean? I'm just saying there's a specific reason and event to go out of the country. Whether they decide to partake in activities that are inappropriate is totally different than trusting your wife to be able to travel safely and come back safely and still make the choices while she's there to not engage in inappropriate activity. That's her choice. That's respect.
We're back to the idea of trust, right? And so the idea is that I don't think it's a breach of trust for somebody to have fears which may not be considered by you to be rational. So, for instance, I'm not in your brain, so I don't know what goes on in your brain. There's a good possibility you're the most trustworthy person on planet Earth, and you know if you go to a place like that you would never do anything like that. But your significant other doesn't know that. They don't know that for sure. They can think it. They can 100% put as much faith in it as they possibly can, but they could still have an irrational fear there, or even in this case, even a legitimate fear. And why not do everything you could to placate that person's fear by something so simple? Something so simple is just, it's not all about me, but also about you too. And if it's all about us and not just me, then if this really bothers you that much, I don't want your brain tortured. I don't want your mind tortured. I don't want you hurting. So I'm going to stay here with you instead. That seems like a great compromise.
But didn't you say that it was revenge?
Well, hang on, respond real quick.
I can't agree. I don't agree with you. Like, I think it's one thing to say, oh, I have an irrational fear, but it's another to let irrational fear control how you're going to conduct your relationship and where you go and what you do. Again, I gave a very valid option of, right, like if you feel so strongly that it could be unsafe, travel with her there, stay in the same hotel, allow her to do the things with the group of girls that are not inappropriate, and be there and be a protector for her if that's how strongly you feel.
Remember that all of this is a compromise in her behalf. What's her compromise?
Sometimes relationships are compromises.
Hang on. Let me ask the question. What's the compromise on his behalf? What is she compromising for him in this situation?
She's not the one restricting him.
Yeah. Let her answer the question. We don't need the sisterhood things.
What do you mean?
At this point, nothing. Like, but at different points in a relationship, you make different compromises.
So hang on. So in this case, in the situation, right? The idea here is he makes all the compromise, you make none.
This time.
Hang on. So the idea here is that, well, then why should he compromise at all? Why not dig in his heels instead and say, no, I don't think you should go, and I don't want you to go. And whether or not you think that that's fair or irrational, I'm going to stick by my guns like you're sticking by yours. That doesn't seem like it's very healthy.
Well, there will be, I'm sure, many other situations where she will have to compromise for him. Maybe this situation, no, but he can make that compromise now, and she can make.
How a relationship
I feel like it
works.
does
There's all
depend
sorts
on
of
the
compromises.
situation.
All sorts of compromises made across a wide spectrum for all sorts of things. Perhaps she has issues with money. Right? This is a very common thing. Women want to see X amount of money in the bank account for large expenditures, so the man compromises a large expenditure that he wants to make so that she feels that sense of security. That happens all the time in relationships. It's one of the number one reasons people get divorced, in fact, is over money, because they don't want a larger expenditure. Men like to spend on large expenditures. They like to take a little bit more risk with money. Women like to take less risk with money. So a compromise, right? Okay, you can see the fatter bank account. That's great. Okay, but I also don't want you to go gallivanting to Europe, okay, for a bachelorette party. Do you think you can do that for me? That seems to be a pretty reasonable ask. And it seems like it's very selfish and self-centered to instead say, no, I'm a boss babe, I do what I want, and the compromise only works here one way.
But I didn't say I'm a boss babe and I do what I want. I said there are options.
Not you specifically.
Either way, for any woman, if you're rational and you can think and you can say, like, are you willing to do this and make this compromise so that I can be there for this important event? And then obviously prior and later on down the road, I will make compromises for you as well. That's just how relationships work.
Yeah, but you're not going to compromise on the thing that he wants now, right? This is like, in this case, he does all the compromise, you do none. Right? Why would this be a deal breaker? Would this be a deal breaker to compromise on this and say?
I mean, I think the compromise would be him attending the Bachelorette and being on property while I'm participating in this process, and that is something that we have discussed. So, I can understand. I even feel like I've said this with my partner, that I feel like his reservations are coming from a place of fear. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think you articulated it well. The compromise for me would be him going with me and traveling to the place that we're going for the Bachelorette, and then kind of checking in and out while we do the girls only kind of stuff.
Well, why? Well, wait. I mean, that doesn't assuage the fear. Why? So. Well,
if he's with me, then that does assuage the fear.
No. If he's checking out while you're doing the girls portion of it, right? That defeats the entire purpose of what creates the fear to begin with.
Can you expand on that?
What's that? Yeah, if you said he checks out while you do whatever the girls' portion is, right?
Yeah, like he wouldn't go to the spa with the girls because he's not it's not co-ed.
But that defeats the purpose. It's what you're doing with the girls that is so concerning, right? That's the problem.
No, it's for him. It's the travel out of the country without him that is the problem.
Well, I mean, in this case, perhaps it's a good enough compromise to say you're going with me to the place. You know what I mean? So that you can see with your own eyeballs, and that in some ways mitigates your fear. Perhaps that's fair enough to do. But I think it's also fair to compromise and just say, well, if this really is such a problem for you, then I just won't go. I just won't go. If it really is something that's going to torture your brain, it's going to torture your mind. Well, even if I don't think it's rational necessarily, I know that you remember that I do all sorts of things that are irrational all the time and have all sorts of fears which are irrational all the time. And, you're pretty understanding about those. So, I'll be understanding about this. And but I think for women often what happens is they only see the compromise on the one side because men generally tend to be so logical, they forget that they also have fears, whether you think they're rational or not.
I definitely see both sides where Andrew's coming from. Like I've been in a situation where, me and my friends were planning on going to Mexico. It ended up not happening anyways, but my boyfriend, he expressed his concerns about my safety, and I don't think it was, like, me personally, I don't think it was controlling in any way, which I think that's a lot of what women think that is like they're just being controlling. But like in that situation, he was looking out for my safety.
Let's just assume for a second it is controlling. Like, so what? In relationships, we control each other's behavior all the time. We control our preferences all the time. We control all sorts of things in the behavior of the person that we're with. For the purpose of necessity, we have to do this. People have to control each other, literally, at least to some degree. Otherwise you wouldn't even know what your significant other's preferences were. There's always a segment of control in a relationship. I just think that that's fine. I don't see why that's a big deal exactly.
Yeah.
I think that seems totally reasonable to me. That both sides in a relationship want to have control over different arenas for different reasons, and they have to give a give and take, right?
I'm going to let a couple chats come in really quick before we do that, though. Quick question on this. What is it? Would you guys want to, I guess, control, like, let's say your boyfriend or husband wants to go to the strip club. Would you tell him, no, I don't want you to go to the strip club? Or would you be totally fine with it going around the table? Go ahead.
I would go with him.
Okay, but he wanted to go alone or with his boys.
I wouldn't mind, honestly.
Wouldn't mind? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
You'd have an issue with it? Okay.
I would say no.
You would say no?
I would say yes.
You'd be fine with it? Okay.
I'd say no.
No?
I'm fine with it.
Fine with it? Okay.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
No, knowing my boyfriend now, he would not even take $1 million to walk into a strip club.
Well, if he did though, you would have an issue with it though.
Yeah.
See, but here we get to the heart of it, right? So in this case, honey, I would trust you to go out to a strip club. Why wouldn't you trust me to go out to Europe? So this is the idea here, right? It's like, I would trust you to do that, but you don't trust me to do this. But it really doesn't have anything to do with a logical aspect, right? It has to do with the respect of assuaging the fear of the person that you love. I mean, that's what I think it ultimately would boil down to, right?
And also some people might say, well, the strip club's different. And I agree. I agree with you. The strip club is different. And here's how. That guy walking into the strip club has a 0% chance of fucking any of the strippers.
But that doesn't matter.
But and the strippers don't want to fuck him, right? But you go to a nightclub, if you're like, if the guys, okay, like 99% of the club want to fuck you. And that's the difference.